with a science fiction writer named John Wright. I would
Yeah.
strongly recommend listening to it, and you and your audience. Yeah, it was very full. He's a lawyer. He's a science fiction writer, a really good one. I don't know about you, but I grew up reading a lot of science fiction.
Yeah,
And
I read a little bit of science fiction. Like I definitely read the Starship Troopers by Heinlein. That was really good.
that book disturbed me when I read it, but there's a lot of truth in it. Especially as I read it as a much older man. I mean, I don't want to live in his society, but he makes a lot of points very cogently in it that I think he upsets people because he's pointing things out that you ought to at least think about that are uncomfortable, right? That's how I see that book.
I haven't read it in a while. I remember like I read it because I really liked the movie, and of course the book is vastly different, which I actually like the book a lot more than the movie.
Those of us who I've actually read almost everything Robert Heinlein ever wrote, almost, because I'm a big sci-fi nerd, and I think every Heinlein fan I've encountered who talked about the movie has agreed that the director obviously hated the book and hated Robert Heinlein. That's anything that was substantive and thought-provoking was just kind of stripped out, and you were just left with the brutality of what is a very brutal story, right? I mean, it's war, save mankind, death all over the place, but it was just like they just made it a fascist government, and that was that. And that's not quite what the book was like, actually. I always thought it was
No,
thought-provoking. Didn't you? I mean, the idea that to be allowed to vote at all, you have to give like a full year of government service before you're even allowed to vote, and
well,
then you have to leave government forever before you're allowed to vote.
yeah. I mean that kind of creates a militaristic society, and I don't exactly agree with a militaristic society.
Yeah, although
But
if you
yeah.
looked deep into it, he was saying you could serve in a government hospital, you could serve in a government anything. The military was where you went when you had nothing else to offer, basically. But yes, it still would create problems. But wouldn't it also mean that the people who actually cared about the state of the country, the government, were the ones who committed something to showing it, made some kind of sacrifice to say, no, I really mean it. I want to vote. I think it matters. I
No,
don't know. It's at least worth talking about.
I don't know. Me personally, I disagree with the whole idea that you have to serve in the military or in the government in some fashion in order to have a vote as to how you're governed. I don't know. I disagree with that, but
Well, but doesn't that bring up the thorny question of democracy? I mean, if everybody votes on everything, you have mob rule.
I don't think I don't think you have mob rule. I think it's more like mob rule if you only allow military personnel to vote.
Well, like I said, the book didn't specify military service. Military service was like if that was your own. If you had no skill to offer and nothing else, you could go in the military. But it could be a year, like I said, serving as a nurse, serving as a teacher, serving as uh, all kinds of things. But whatever.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I know. Huh? Go ahead.
So you're what kind of engineer are you again?
I'm a software engineer.
Okay, I've known a
Yeah.
number of them. I used to be one. Well, it's a long. No, I was never a software engineer. Basically, I started playing with computers in the late '70s. So
Oh, okay.
you had to program them. You had to know how to program them. You had to know the hardware. You had to know it all. Actually, you could know every single piece of your machine, chip on there. So
Well, I mean, that's
I know
kind of
how.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of part of it now. I
Hmm?
mean, you know, in order to be like a computer engineer, you got to have a healthy dose of both hardware and software. So, um, but anyways, my first question though for tonight is, I really just am curious as to what like converted you back into Christianity from atheism, because you know you talk about how you were an atheist and but then you converted to a Christian. So I'm wondering, like, what convinced you?
Yeah, and I guess you could say I that I was originally Christian, but it's a stretch, right? I had no religion in my home at all that I can recall, like none until like roughly, I can't remember exactly, but roughly age 9, 10, right in there, my stepdad decides we're going to be Presbyterian. And right about the same time, my bio dad, starts introducing me to his King James Bible. Televangelists, people like Pat Robertson and Will Roberts and those people. And I believed real hard for maybe a month or two as a kid because I was trying to. And I had a few, and I never really believed any of it. In fact, they forced me to go through Presbyterian confirmation classes, and I had made it clear I didn't want to do this, but my stepdad and my mom made me do it. And so actually, I remember doing they have you stand up and say some vow or prayer or something. I don't basically saying yes, this is what I believe. I confirm it. And while all the other kids were doing, I just went ba 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 ba. And that would have been what, I don't know when they do that. 12. Oh, I don't know when they do that.
Oh, yeah, about 12 or
So
13.
yeah, and I on the other hand, unlike there were always religious people around, and I never had any hostility to them. I did have a real hostility to the believer burn Calvinist mentality, and I still hate that with a passion. But I became, I wavered between a sort of vague spiritism to an agnosticism. It was guys like James Randi and Penn Jillette who more or less convinced me I was an atheist, and I just studied science and worked with technology and and all that stuff. Um, I began questioning the atheist worldview just about the time the new atheist explosion was hitting. Sam Harris, Letter to a Christian Nation, The God Delusion, and all those books were just hitting mainstream. And I noticed a certain dogmatism even in what they were saying. Like I knew some of the shit Sam Harris was saying was just wrong. And I had a few run-ins with because I was a blogger. It used to be called Dean's World. It's hard to find it, but it used to be pretty popular. Um, and I was an atheist, and I would just say, "Well, yeah, I'm an atheist, but I'm not hostile to religious people. I wish people Merry Christmas, and if they said God bless you, I'd say thank you." Because I thought it was a nice sentiment. But I would tell people I was an atheist, and I was, and what really shocked me was attacks from my fellow atheists for the wrong thinking and the wrong attitudes. And I was mobbed by them a couple, 3 times. The worst was from PZ Myers and some of the old science blogs crew. There were others. And I had noticed what I considered very emotional, dogmatic thinking in some of them. And the last of the attacks, just as it was getting popular, I'm like, holy cow, this is a terrible fad. I just don't want to be associated with it anymore. And so don't call me an atheist anymore. These people are crazy. And that's how I felt. It's still how I feel. I thought it would pass. Yeah, but in any case, by force of saying, well, I'm not an atheist, well, maybe I need to get more serious about religion. and maybe at least study more about it. And took a comparative religion class, didn't find much there. I did have a real bad period in my life, and I was a bad alcoholic for a while. And although, believe it or not, the alcohol wasn't the underlying problem, that's neither here nor there. And when you get it, but anyway, especially when you're broke and you need help with addiction, your best place is still AA, which is a 12-step program. It still is, if nothing else, even if some of the skeptics are wrong in some of the things they say about AA, but it's free and it's everywhere, and it really does help. If nothing else, it gives you a support group, which you need if you're trying to recover from addiction. But part of the 12 steps, by the time you get to step 3, they want you to get to some kind of God of your own personal understanding. And I did observe that among the people there who had a pretty secure grasp on God of their own understanding, always did better. They just always did. I mean, some were still kind of surly and cynical, but most of the ones who did well and thrived and stayed sober and were inspirations to others also did believe in a God. Although it was verboten in AA circles to proselytize Jesus or Muhammad or any particular religion. And I think that's appropriate, especially if someone's coming in and they're angry at Jesus, they're angry at God, angry at the Bible, whatever, because you do meet those people. I met a lot of them. So anyway, I looked at that, and I also looked at a lot of anthropological and evolutionary data. And I concluded that spirituality was normal in humans, and that writing it all off as psychological aberration and delusion or stupidity was dumb. I literally concluded that we evolved the capacity to need religion. And that the whole idea that, spirituality, strong spirituality, which is belief in spiritual forces, is normal in humans. It's always been there. And I didn't believe then, and I don't believe now you can support the hypothesis that it's stupidity or delusion. At minimum, the supernatural actually has to exist. And so that was one of my conclusions. Although for a while there, I actually said to myself, even if it is all psychological and electrochemical, if you look at a lot of the science, people who are religious tend to live longer and have more stable lives, because they do. I'll show that to you. I'm not here with a reference list, but I'll show it to you. Doesn't even matter that much what religion they have. They tend to live longer and be more stable if they have one and are regular attenders. So again, this pointed to me evolutionarily, like, okay, there must be a need here. And even if it's psychological, well, I should explore that and see if I can figure out what people are, getting out of it. Eventually, to put a long story short, I began to question the whole idea that there was no underlying purpose in the universe and how it operated.
Okay.
Honestly, this will be weird. I'll shut up now because I'm sure you got questions. Honestly, nobody here will explain this, but I will accept this as anything. But I was reading a book by Ray Kurzweil called "The Singularity is Near," and he had this chart in there, which I don't even know if it was true, right? If I went back to it now, because this was more than 10 years ago, but if I went back to it now, maybe I'd look at it and say, well, that's a dumb chart. But at the time I looked at it and it just hit me, and I found it compelling. It showed the growth of intelligence in the universe on a pretty steady upward path, intelligence as he defined it. And my mind just said, if that's true, that cannot possibly be on accident. And that's when it kind of cracked, and I said, all right, I'm willing to accept something intelligent is running things. And that's kind of where I began from there. So there you go. I don't know if...
Okay. Well, my first question is, does a mere belief that something exists make it exist or mean that it exists?
Well, no, but... No, but it also doesn't mean it doesn't. So
Well,
I
no,
would,
it doesn't mean that it doesn't. But I mean, what I'm getting at here is like, let's say I had a box right here in front of me that had like 10 aspirins in it. But let's say I chose to believe that it had 15 aspirins in it. Does that mean that it has 15 aspirins in it?
no,
Okay.
no.
Well, the way that I'm going about this is that you say that humans evolved this need to believe in religion, to believe in a higher power.
Yep.
My point is that just mere belief doesn't make it like true. Like, doesn't make it a fact that it's
Well,
there.
here's one of the things you're going to find there if you really get interested in this, and I would encourage you to, because exploring these in a good way will probably make you a better engineer, and I'm not even kidding. Um, um, because what was I going to say? The I am tired, guys. So give me a break if I'm sounding rambling. I am. I just got it off another stream. Um, ask me that question. Oh, okay. Look, we evolved the need for emotional attachment. We evolved a need for, obviously, not just eating, but for we evolved a need for social bonds. We evolved a need for communication to make that social, to extend that sociability. Um, we evolved the ability to conceive of things and conceive ideas. And so we also evolved in a way that, for example, 2 + 2 is intuitive. You don't actually need any math training for it. I think we can do counting math from 1 to 5. Every human can do just with no training at all, because it's just kind of innate and intuitive. If you evolve an intuitive sense that there is something beyond the physical that we can observe, I would argue to you, and you can bring your own conclusion. If we evolved a need for awareness and contact with the supernatural, that is which is beyond the laws of physics, if we evolved it and it's proven functional, on what basis would you even dismiss that it was real?
Well,
What is the basis for asserting it's merely psychological?
well, I mean,
Um,
I would contest the idea that it's functional. I mean, one of the benefits of like the scientific method is that it is, predictive. Like it has predictive capabilities. Like for instance, with gravitational, the law of gravity and the scientific theory of gravity. Both of those things work in tandem to describe how things operate, and with the addition of general relativity, we have a better picture of how things operate in our reality. So like my content I contend that this whole idea of supernatural things doesn't actually give predictive power to things like for
but it
instance
does.
in the
It
Bible.
does.
Well, hold on one second. In the Bible, Jesus quite literally spits and rubs dirt in the eyes of a blind man and cures his blindness.
You
So
know.
I guess I don't see how we have any kind of like predictive power as to, well, how could we reproduce this? Like, how could this happen again? How is this possible in reality?
Well, all right. I gotta unpack a lot of that. But let me just point out that definitionally. And by the way, I want to really, I want you and everybody else to hear this. I talk regularly to people of other religions about their spiritual views. Is I am not coming here as a Christian apologist. I really, I do as little Christian apologetics as I can. I defend religion generally. I really do. I've even got a witch friend I'm bringing on to talk again next week. Come on by. He's interesting. But definitionally, he performed a miracle. Miracles are mostly, but not entirely, outside of the purview of science. They're outside of the purview of empirical science, which is what you're calling science. But they're not outside the purview of certain other ways of doing science, non-empirical science, and that goes to the question of whether you believe non-empirical science exists. If it does, then we have in fact got science on supernatural things, and when you say that, Einstein, relativity, and all that. Look, I could tell you a lot about Albert Einstein. One thing he was not was an atheist. He explicitly rejected it. He also very much praised the Catholic Church. Again, I'm not here as a Catholic apologist, but it's true. He did. And furthermore, the Big Bang Theory was formulated by Father Georges Lemaitre, a Catholic priest. And one of the reasons it was accepted is because Einstein befriended him. When he saw Georges Lemaitre give his presentation proposing the Big Bang, he got so excited he exclaimed to the audience that Georges Lemaitre was the first person to really understand relativity. And if you want, I will explain to you why the theistic worldview of Georges Lemaitre made it more possible for him to formulate the Big Bang Theory, not less. Because a theistic, especially a monotheistic worldview, is implicitly more friendly to the empirical sciences, I would submit, than any other worldview. Do you want me to explain? Okay. Let's first get to what Lemaitre would have understood and believed in, and what Einstein understood and respected. I don't know if he didn't quite believe it because his views were kind of nebulous. But what most men were familiar with was the concept of the prime mover, which goes back to Aristotle. By the way, if you're an engineer, please read some Aristotle. Without ever getting into another Bible again, go study teleology and metaphysics. It will change everything about your world in a good way. Metaphysics and teleology. And don't believe anybody who tells you metaphysics is a waste of time. So anyway, the prime mover. Going back to Aristotle, about 300 BC, Aristotle was not a religious man. He may not have even liked Christianity. But he posited that there can be no infinite regress of uncaused. There can be no infinite regress of uncaused causes, or I'm not saying it right. An infinite causal series is impossible. There has to be a prime mover. But furthermore, that redirects the question all the way to the beginning, because a prime mover is necessary for the laws of physics to operate at all and to keep operating in the way they are, which is something Aristotle observed and countless others since. The idea of the prime mover has been embedded in physics for all of history until very recently. Because when you posit that something is ultimately running the universe, screw the moment of creation. I don't care when it was created. If something intelligent is running the universe, that makes a lot more sense than it just blindly going the way it does. And Aristotle called it the theos, Theos. Plato called it the same thing. Socrates did the same thing. None of them were a religious man. And that word theos is where the word theology comes from. And if you look into Aristotle on physics, even though he saw some things very different than we do, even just learning how he thought that way is very useful if you're going to get into theoretical physics. Once you posit that something intelligent is running things, now you can establish that there are rules and work out what those rules are to how that intelligent thing is running everything. Georges Lemaitre believed from the Bible and from philosophy that the universe had to have a beginning. From the Bible and from the idea of the prime mover, that time has to have started somewhere. Because also philosophically, he believed, as others, that you can't have an infinite chain going backwards with no ultimate cause. That it just can't be. And he looked at Einstein's theory and he said, well, this is true. If this is true, this is probably how God did it. And that really is how we got the Big Bang Theory.
I would. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I would just submit to you that if you posit that God is the unmoved mover, the thing that is making it all go, just like the digital physics theory does, by the way, that there's something intelligent ultimately running it all, then you're free to assume the universe is intelligible, that things make sense, that there are rules that operate predictably. Those are all faith beliefs, by the way. And if you throw that out, then you're stuck accepting a random universe. And I don't think you can even count on doing science reliably if you do that. That's what I think.
Okay, well, I guess the first thing that I would bring up is, the fact that there was a cause for the Big Bang, but that doesn't immediately mean that a God had to do it. And I think that saying that something had to cause it or someone had to cause it is kind of a begging the question situation there. Because I mean, what?
You're free to think so. I don't. I really think it's absolutely necessary that something had to have caused that, and that something would have to be infinitely powerful beyond our imagining anyway, and it would have to be intelligent. It's
why does it have to be? Well,
that's
why does
what
it
I
have
think.
to
And
be?
I can't prove that to you if you think it's logical that it happened randomly or that it's some unknowable thing. I can't prove to you that that's your conclusion, but it is your conclusion.
Well, I mean that's fine. I guess like I'm always in a pursuit to better inform myself, and I guess I'm just not seeing the logical connection between something caused the Big Bang to that something has to be intelligent. I mean, everything in this universe screams non-intelligence and happenstance.
Does it?
So I mean, I guess I just don't see that logical leap there.
You might really want to go listen to the conversation John C. Wright and I just had on my channel, really, because we're both former atheists, and we were talking about this very thing. What I would say is that you just used a lot of, seems to me, arguments, but then again, so did I. I can see, at this point, I can fathom no reason why the universe should be intelligible to us at all. If it's intelligible, intelligibility like that doesn't just arise at random. It just doesn't. The laws of probability, what's running those? The laws of physics, what's running those? To posit both of those run on their own is silly, I think. I mean, you could just posit that the laws of probability in physics run in the orderly, predictable, intelligible way they do, blindly, randomly on their own. To me, that proposition is, I mean, I did used to believe that. I mean, I was just talking to John Wright about this because I really did believe that a random causeless universe, I was able to make that fit in my head for a long time. And I think that's why I was an atheist.
Okay, well, have you heard of Pigeonhole Theory?
Maybe. Tell me more.
Okay, so Pigeonhole Theory, let's say you have 13 people in a room and you have them all write down like the month that they were born in. What is the probability that 2 people in that room would be born in the same month?
Oh yeah, I've heard this one from James Randi. It's probably it's close to 1, right? I think it goes up to 30 or 36 or something, then it's 100% almost. Yeah, 12 people in a room. If this is a big enough crowd, 2 people will always share the same birthday.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a very basic example of it, but it's 100%. There's a 100% chance that 2 people in that room, at least one set of 2 people, would have the same same month that they were born in, and the same thing is, huh?
Yeah, sure. I'm just saying. Yeah, I got you.
Okay, So the same thing applies to like the laws of physics with the universe, or the laws of probability with the universe, because I know a lot of people really hang on the whole idea that it's highly improbable that we should be here right now. But
Well,
if
it is.
you take in the vast amount of chances for us to happen, and compare that to the probability of us happening, you'll find out that the probability of us actually happening is 100%, because there are that many chances for us to arise. And actually, it's more than 100%, because there's a good chance that there's life out there elsewhere in the universe.
You just made quite a few extraordinary claims there that demand evidence. And without being rude, I do not think you can provide evidence for any of that.
Name one thing that.
First off, cosmologists and quite a few physicists will completely disagree with quite a few things you just said, including some I'll be happy to introduce you to, because they were former atheists too. And so, I mean, and let me be clear something here too. I will answer the Christian question later, because I mean, it took me a while to land back on Christianity. And we almost never get there, but if you want to, we can, but not tonight. I mean, really, you just said a lot of things that aren't true. First off, while I'm in no way hostile to the idea that there's intelligent life elsewhere on Earth, if you just go start elsewhere in the universe, it is in no way, if you investigate what they found in the cosmological constant, no, the odds against this happening at random are ludicrously low. And the assertion that the universe just will produce life naturally is completely undemonstrated anywhere in science. And while
I would say that it's demonstrated right now.
Please prove that extraordinary claim, because I know a lot of science, a lot of it, and I know a lot of scientists. You're going to have to show me where you've proven any of this, because right now it's an open debate among scientists whether it's even possible, whether there's any life anywhere else but on this planet. There might be, don't get me wrong, I'm not against the idea, but as far as I know, as the current state of science is, it's completely the opposite. We still have no evidence. Although an interesting lady to read, by the way, is a woman named Lynn Margulis, who's a really interesting evolutionary biologist. And she invented basically the field of exoastronomy. It's pretty extraordinary, showing xenobiologists how to search for evidence of life on other planets. She's a real neat lady. So it might be out there, but I mean, the statements you just made, I believe, are simply empirically incorrect, sir. That okay. The current state of science, as it's understood, does not support the idea that it's all going to arise spontaneously.
Well, no, I think it does.
Or that the universe is teeming with life. We don't know that. I would actually think it was cool if that were true. I just say we don't know that scientifically. I have to. We can come back another time. Maybe you'll prove me wrong. I'm not here to fight, man.
No, I'm not here to fight either. I mean, I feel like we're having a nice conversation.
Yeah, no, you're gonna have to back that up for me, because I got my sources that say none of that sounds right to me.
Okay. As far as the cosmological constant and all that science there, I would say that our existence now is evidence that it can rise spontaneously, because I mean, we can't know like how many times like the Big Bang banged before our universe was here. I mean, there's the very classical apologist line of, everything had to be perfectly in sync in order for us to even be here. And I would agree that, that there are certain facts.
Not just an apologist line, it's a scientific line, but okay.
Well, no, it's an apologist line because it's in the context of the God question. Yeah, there's actually Brian Stevens in the chat here just did a super chat. So let me read it real quick. It's the odds of God are incalculable. Interesting. He picks this option over things he says are highly improbable.
What? No, your godless universe is ridiculously unsustainable and ludicrously improbable. The idea that your presuppositional atheism there is merely your presupposition, sir, and it's a philosophical stance you take, not a scientific one. The idea that something, a prime mover, is ultimately running things is a perfectly rational conclusion to reach based on evidence. And if you take that away, you are left having to explain away a lot of things and ultimately trying to posit a bunch of ludicrous things like a random universe that just runs itself, or an infinitely exploding, imploding, exploding, imploding, which a universe would, it's all random till it eventually hits on us by accident. I'm sorry, you've just broken Occam's Razor. You have just added complexity. You have just multiplied entities and made an assumption you can't prove, you just want to believe.
Well, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't
no
say that I
scientific
made.
basis there.
No, I wouldn't say that I violated Occam's Razor, because Occam's
You
Razor
did.
just means the simplest answer with the least amount of assumptions. And I even said that we don't know what happened before the Big Bang, but I'm saying that it's possible. It's possible that with the way virtual particles work, it's possible for something to have like sparked before the actual Big Bang occurred. There's nothing that we can show to prove that another universe can exist with different values or whatnot. Like, we can't prove that it doesn't exist without values. Just like I'm an agnostic as far as it comes to a general God hypothesis, like the general God that's out there that doesn't have a real effect on our reality or anything like
The
that. Like,
intelligent mind running the laws of physics and probability in real time, as stated in for example, the quantum digital physics theory of the universe, which posits that very same thing, that in real time, something intelligent's running all of it, like we're running around in Minecraft. Now, that's contemporary science. So what would be question begging is to say, well, we don't know if it's an infinite mind. Maybe it's just something less, something else. But I will tell you again, you have multiplied entities infinitely by assuming an infinite causal chain, or by assuming an infinite multiverse for which there is no evidence.
no, I didn't assume that they definitely existed.
Well, right. In other words, but you've got a limited list of possibilities there, and you don't have a scientific basis for any of them. You really only have a few choices. Your infinite multiverse, or some kind of infinitely exploding, collapsing, exploding, collapsing thing. Which, by the way, why would it run in that pattern?
Okay. So hold on. So first of all, there are multiple theories about not theories, sorry, hypotheses about what could have occurred before the Big Bang happened. One of them is that kind of accordion effect. But actually, that particular hypothesis has a lot of problems. Like, for instance, it doesn't really explain why it contracts and then expands again. Like, there's no explanation in that hypothesis for that one. But there is like a steady state existence before the Big Bang that's hypothesized. We just don't know what nudged it out of that steady state prior to the Big Bang. And there's nothing to suggest that an intelligent designer had to fart in that direction in order to cause it to bang.
There's stuff all over the place that an intelligent creator that is currently running everything in real time. There's all sorts of evidence for that, and everything you just listed there is an explain aware and is actually an entity multiplier. It's totally rational. I'd like to stop here. Maybe we can come back for this. I'd like to stop here, but I'm just going to point out what my position is, which is that you are working as presuppositional atheists and working as presuppositional people that you can simply dismiss this. Now, what intelligent people think is that something intelligent is running it all right now in real time. And when we talk about the seen and the unseen, the seen is that which is within the four forces of physics, basically, and the unseen is everything which is outside the four forces of physics. And if you assert that there is nothing outside the four forces of physics, first off, please prove that scientifically. Second, how do you explain math, logic, or even the laws of physics themselves? I'll actually leave that for you guys as a question, but I'm going to remind you again the basic theist concept, which is very universal in humans and intuitive in humans, and at least rational to posit, is that an intelligent mind is controlling all of it: the logic, the laws of the physics, the realm of mathematics and geometry, even concepts like truth and beauty. That is the classical theist position. That's what we mean by the seen and the unseen, too. It can be made, of course, to fit into the Bible's view of the world, but it can be made to fit into other views of the world. That's the idea, is something intelligent running everything. I concluded on the evidence that there has to be. And from there, I began to seek the spiritual and open myself to it and run my skepticism in the other direction and say, why am I dismissing what look like spiritual experiences and telling myself they have to be psychological? What scientific evidence do I have for that? So, I mean, that's how I got where I am. And I do get tired of people treating religious people like we're deluded or like we're all trying to pull a con job on you. We're people who've reached a conclusion, some more logically than others. If nothing else, as an atheist, when I was an atheist, I would have been embarrassed at this presupposition that you can just come out and tell people they have to prove what they believe to you to your satisfaction, or it's not true, which is an attitude I see. The disrespect for the religious really bothers me, because you know what? If somebody's 85 IQ and can't give you a good explanation for how a rainbow works, it's not your job to re-educate them. I mean,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
wouldn't you say that it would be a nice gesture to inform somebody of how, the world works? Like, I don't know, whenever I'm told how something actually works, I value that information.
You presuppose you know how it actually works, and you presuppose you know all the intricacies of what you just said. I mean, do you think you can truly reduce a rainbow down to the electromagnetic spectrum? Because you can't. In fact, I'll point this out to you. You can't reduce any color on the spectrum to electromagnetic waves because you can't explain how you perceive the color red in your head. Nobody in current science can. Can't. Find it. I bet you can't. All you can do is define it as electromagnetic waves, which is not how we perceive them. That's not how we see red or blue or green or any of that. And there's no explanation for how we perceive that anywhere in the brain. If you can find that for me,
red operates on a. Can I talk real quick?
Sure.
Okay. So, red operates at a very specific frequency, and our brains,
Yeah, it does.
Okay, well, our brains, they interpret the light that that flows in through our eyes, and our brain interprets that as a certain thing. And it's very dependent on our eyes and how our brain interprets things. Because just think like colorblind people, they have a bit of a mixed up kind of color perception. So I mean, it's totally explainable.
Let me do this, man. I'm going to give you the link, and I really will come back if you really want me to, because I want this kind of conversation so bad. Actually, I do. If nothing else, I want better atheists. I mean it. I really do. I used to hang out with atheists and have a good time with them, and now I feel like I got to run from them because they're nasty. I'm sorry if you don't like hearing it, but it's truth. Here, I'll send you this link. You can share it with people. It's John C. Wright, the science fiction author. How do I paste this to you? Oh, here we go. I'll paste it in your chat link. And I'm just going to assert that you just tried to explain my perception of Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, whatever. I'm being a nerd. You tried to compare my experience of seeing the color blue to the electromagnetic spectrum, and how it gets processed through your electrochemically through your nervous system, and still have not produced what is the color green that I'm seeing or the color blue that I'm seeing right now. You've only described the physical processes, and you can't describe the perception of green or yellow at all. Nobody can scientifically at all. In fact, Google up something called the hard problem in cognitive science, And this is one of many problems within current neuroscience that have never been beaten, that people have been trying for centuries. I'll leave you with that. And if you thought I missed something, let me know. And if you need references for something, legitimately need references, just ask, and I'll see what I can rustle up for you. Okay, guys? Thank you for having me on. I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed you letting me vent.
Okay. Well, I definitely hope that we can do this again. Then, I'm sorry
All
if I
right.
got you too riled up to continue.
You did. Aw, dude, why did you have to do that? Really? Come on. Cheap. I came in here saying I was tired, and I'm tired now. You didn't rile me up. I'm just tired. All right. God bless you all.
Well,
Really. Good night.
good night. Okay. I didn't realize being polite there at the end was a bad thing. Well, no, yeah. I mean, he said he was going to end it if he felt too tired, and I know that he kind of got riled up there, and I was really trying hard not to rile him up. So, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he will come back, and I'm really glad that he will. I hope that he will. I hope that he comes. Hope that he comes back to talk. I really love you guys hanging out with me tonight. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. There's a lot to unpack here. Um, definitely, I've got I've got to go and not really look up some things, but really just rewatch this conversation just to see exactly what happened. I'm still. I mean, it was just kind of like boom, 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 boom. Thank you, Brian Stevens, for that super chat. During these kind of conversations that I have, I will give priority to super chats. I am planning on going through some comments real quick. How do I Jen Undercover asked, how do I stay calm? Well, I try to listen and respond, to what somebody's actually saying, and not just trying to presuppose what they might say or whatnot. Like, I generally educate myself on apologist arguments so that I kind of know how I want to respond, but I generally try to wait until somebody makes a claim or says something in order for me to respond. And I was really trying hard tonight to not rile him up. And I mean, he said that he was tired, and maybe he didn't get riled up. But I guess I just it seemed like at some point he, I guess just not really lost it, but I guess he just got too tired to continue. So um, Occam's Razor was used to destroy science as used by Occam. I think that moth might. I don't know what he's talking about. Beej Price, you're welcome. Huh? What? I'm reading comments. Huh? Can you make a video reacting to the stream? Yeah, I was thinking about it because I mean he did unpack a lot of things there, but I mean at some point, I mean it's just like when I explained the basics of how light enters our eyes and our brain interprets it. Like I feel like he didn't understand that. Like I'm not saying that we know how our brain interprets it, but just that that's the general process. You did Grumpy Santa a little bit, but it's going to be available right after this, and it was kind of a doozy. Jimmy DB says, John, you are so far about this that it's silly. What? Who needs Advil? The woo is strong with this one. Would be perfect. You would have so much content. Well, I don't want to, go too much on like if I did one, I would just do one. Like I would just do one kind of wrap up video where I respond to some things that I didn't get a chance to really respond to. Missed out most of it, but I still hung up on the we don't know how we see color. I'm still hung up on the we don't know how we see color bit when we're developing implants that can restore sight to the blind. Well, yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I I don't know exactly how it works, but I knew the basic process of it, and I mean that's really, I mean, just knowing the basic process is really all you have to know. I mean, you don't have to know intricately how the brain interprets light in order to show colors. You know, I felt like I gave him a lot of good counter examples for things that he was saying, and um, I did find it pretty ironic and funny that he was asking me to prove something to, substantiate my claims when, on Peter's channel, Gonna Go For It, he stormed off because people were asking him for evidence. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Uh, anyways, Dean, if you happen to watch this later or whatnot, I really hope that you still come back on. I can't wait to set that up again, and I can't wait for another conversation with him because this was quite interesting. And I'll probably do it a live stream on here again. I don't know if it'll be next week or the week after that, but I'll definitely let you heathens know beforehand. One thing that one thing that you guys do need to know is that we do have a community tab now on the page or on the channel. Right now, YouTube's rolling out in waves this community tab where I can post text posts, pictures, polls, and everything like that. So, how I'm planning on implementing this on the page on the channel is, I normally post at 8 a.m. Central Time every day. And then in the afternoons, I'm going to have a separate text or image post where I engage with you guys. And so that's kind of how that's going to roll. So I hope that you guys will appreciate that. If you want to go to the community tab right now on the dashboard, or not dashboard, but the front page of the channel, I've got a question up right now. If you want to interact with that, tell me what you are watching, like right now. Like, what series are you watching? What show? What movie? Whatever it is that you're watching, I want to know what it is. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button because I do these. I don't do live streams all that often, but I'm trying to work them into my schedule a little bit more. So I hope that you guys will enjoy that. So stay tuned. Tomorrow morning we have Vice Rhino for an interview. I still have that coming out. I've just got to get it exported. And I guess I will see you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice, heathens. Bye, guys.